Put the music there so I can edit it back in on the pretty version anyway. Welcome back to another episode, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this episode finds you well wherever it finds you in the world. It's been another tragic day in the realms of critical thinking and the work of the logician taking a hit, but here we are. That's not about my complaints as a working adult. We are here tonight to talk about the reading of Sherlock Holmes, and it's one of those things that is an easy access point for everyone, right? I have a touch of Sondoku, I believe it's pronounced like. It's a Japanese word. I don't learn or speak Japanese, so I don't technically know how you pronounce it, but it's the feeling of positivity you get from being around books, and it's one of those things that people talk to me about a lot. My personal standpoint on it is I'm not arrogant enough to tell you what to read. The truth is out there, as it were. So I thought it would be uh, better, more practical for you guys to talk about a kind of system of sorts with which to codify, quantify, uh, 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 understand what you're reading and why these types of things. Because it's like an easy question to go, what do you read to think like Sherlock Holmes? And I'm not saying that I do. I'm saying that I try to, right? But it's one of those things that what do you read in order to do that? Well, I could tell you what I read in order for it to work for me, but it might be a different stack of books for you. It might be a different stack of books for you. It might be a different stack of books for you. Alvis gets happy around books as well. Great, perfect. We'll get on like a proverbial house on fire. And I'm going to show you some of the books that have been consumed and are about to be consumed this month. Well, probably not all of them by the end of the month, but these are the ones that I've been working on. These are some of the stuff that I've been working on. Anyway, right? But this concept is probably not that I keep track, but it's probably the single most common question that I get. And while it sounds like a simple one, it's actually it's actually the wrong question, right? It's actually the wrong question because the problem isn't just finding a list of books. The problem is figuring out which books or articles or papers or leaflets or whatever are actually worth your time. Because if you treat your reading like um, evidence, then you quickly realize that not all evidence is reliable. So that's kind of what drew me to this, that instead of just giving you a list, I'd rather give you a process that you can use that would be iterative for you, so you don't have to keep pooling resources. That you have this one thing that can work and does work for you. It would keep going for as long as you have the capacity to read. Right? It's a way to filter what you read in the same way that you'd filter information in an investigation. It's separating the notion of the fad from the fact. And if you followed the other episodes that we did with behavioural intelligence, my reasoning funnel, deductive filtering is a primary part of that. So first up, then, how does one separate the fads and opinions from research that actually matters, research that actually works, research that's actually pertinent to you? Very different. I mean, they coalesce at times, but they're very different in terms of their thinking patterns. You can start by checking the source, right? If you consume books, the bibliography is a great place to start. If somebody cites where they found a study, go and find it. Don't complain that the resources aren't there in front of you if they've given you a tip on how to find it. This is just additional pooling material. It's less a complaint of convenience and more a prod towards activity. So you start by essentially checking the source. Peer-reviewed journals, replicated studies, long-term principles, they carry a lot more weight than blog posts or a catchy TED talk, right? Sherlock wouldn't rely on hearsay. Neither should you. So when you're coming to a concept or a book or an idea or a paper that you're trying to explore, you can ask yourself questions like, has this idea stood the test of time? Has it been replicated? Is it a megaphone for somebody's bias? Is it backed in some way, or is it just noise dressed up as insight? Now, this, to be honest, it wasn't always my approach when this question would come up. For years, my advice to anyone who asked was simple: read everything, pile your plate high, consume as much as you possibly can, and as you use it more, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't. And whereas um, that's a watered down, simplistic, and technically correct version, as we've had again a surge of questions around this come in, let's break it down now that we have the podcast and the ability to do that. So there's one fixed iteration of it that you can come to again and again if you need to, because it does have benefits doing it that way. It gave exposure to the idea, but in terms of those viewpoints, it can be time consuming. For some, it's inefficient. And what I discovered over time was that the key isn't in volume, it's selection. My preference is still, for me, everything and then filter. That's my preference. But for others, and the response to how you read, it's not always going to be the case. For some, it will work great, but not for others. So if you start treating your reading like evidence and filtering for reliability, for relevance, your progress can accelerate. Right? That's why I think of this for those who are just starting off, not as a kind of shortcut or a hack. Hate that word. Um, to get you past any kind of trial and error, but to give you a method that will save you time, that will build you a pool of knowledge with which to be able to practice with quickly. Right? Not that speed is the key. Efficiency isn't always the way. One of the books I referenced in my TED talk was Reclaiming Conversation, and when you look at it from a critical thinking perspective, if you focus on depth, you risk breadth, and if you focus on breadth, you risk depth. And that's the thing. Efficiency is bum, 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 bum. There's never the option to go deep as you need if you just next, 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 next. Right? So science can be your hunting ground of sorts. So then it begs the question where to hunt. If you're involved in specifically developing a kind of skill set that is a facsimile of Sherlock's. The richest ground, in only my opinion, do with that what you will, is neuroscience, psychology, and behavioural science at the start. Right, you will branch out, and we'll get into that as we go. Right, but if you take the neuroscientific perspective, that's showing you how memory, how attention, and reasoning, how all those work at a biological level. Psychology teaches you how humans think, how they perceive, how how we think, how we perceive, how we fall into biases. Behavioral science a gives you more real world data on how people act when no one's watching. That combination is a very close step towards that kind of X-ray vision for the human mind that Sherlock was apparently so infamous for. Your reading filter, right? Because you can't actually read everything. You know, one of the benefits I've found in practicing the languages that I'm working on is I'm able to read things from that neck of the woods now. But even so, you can't read everything. It's it's an impossibility. As fun as it might be to try, if you're a fellow dork, um, you can't do it. So, from a practical perspective, you might look to create this filter. So when you pick up a book, an article, or a study, you can run it through these questions. Is it evidential? As in, does it cite data, experiments, or established science, even in passing? Right? As in, there's when I take this to conversational, when I say to somebody, "Oh, that's great. Where did you hear that idea?" And like, "Oh, I heard so and so mention it." Then I'm thinking, "Cool, store that name, and I'll go and find out about that person. Do they cite their data? Do they reference their experiments? Is it grounded in established science?" I don't care where the influx comes from or how it's laid out. If it's referenced in some way, is it backed by experiments, and what's its established connection in the scientific community, right? We then go to, is it applicable? Right? Is it applicable for this skill set? So does it strengthen your memory? Does it strengthen your reasoning? Does it strengthen your observational skills, or all of the above, or some kind of combination? Is it enduring? Does it connect to principles that will still matter 5 years from now? If the answer is no to around two of those, you found clutter, not fuel. And this is where I go. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some things that I've had to read and I've had to learn about for work, or because somebody I know is interested in that and I want to be able to talk it through with them. These kinds of things. It's a different discipline. It's a different requirement. Whereas if we're thinking purely about this skill set, this way of life, if you're failing on around two of those, it's clutter and not fuel. So then we move from the framework of what you've read to using it. That's the key. If you want the personal interpretation of a skill set of Sherlock Holmes, it is nothing without application. Otherwise, it's just fun theory that you heard once. You'd be an excellent pub quizzer. So it's having this framework and then moving it towards practice. And that's really where it gets to be personal. How you use what you read determines what is essentially your specialty. If you're naturally drawn to micro details, quirks in a person, behavioural science, perceptual psychology, they'll sharpen your observation. If you love connecting dots into patterns, dive into logic, decision making, decision architecture, cognitive bias research to really hone your discipline, right? If your weak spot is memory, then neuroscience, memory science should become a daily workout. So the point isn't to read everything. It's to direct your reading itself towards what your strengths and your weaknesses are. So your library essentially evolves with you, right? Oh, hang on. It's interesting. Off topic, but it's impressive. It's impressive how you can learn from Sherlock Holmes. I can't imagine doing that with any other character, like, for example, Tarzan. Tarzan, I think only his sense of smell. Um, Fair, but like with Tarzan, it depends on what your connection is. With Tarzan, sense of smell, beautiful. But then you could also think about non-verbal communication, how he communicated with the animals, right? If you take the Disney interpretation out of it, it was non-verbal communication, right? And then you've also got the foundational qualities of his grip strength, his diet, right? What would the kind of diet found in the jungle have done to a human being over that length of time? Then you could look at the psychological makeup of what turns people feral or not. You could look at how he connects towards calisthenics, right? This is what I mean. You can take inspiration from anywhere. It's just that for me, in terms of who I am, Sherlock Holmes as an archetype has always been somebody I've just connected to. Right? It's weird to feel a kind of kinship with someone who isn't real. Um, Psycho C4AZ. Uh, Hi. Hi. Uh, Interesting username. I like it. But yes, what was I saying? Um, the library evolving with you, right? One of the the best ways to do that is something that I've just called self-directed casework. And it's just because I need a name for it in my head when I talk about it to people. Doesn't you call it whatever you want. Clod hopping bicycle trumpets, if you don't like the name self-directed casework. If you want to profile people, then you target studies on deception detection, communication, behavior, cross cultural communication. If you want to understand environments, you read into situational awareness, you read into environmental psychology. If you want decision speed, you study cognitive load, OODA loops beyond OODA. You make your reading serve the case of the skill, not the other way around, right? So this is why I say with that example from Tarzan, there's all of those things that stand out, and if you know nothing about the dietary requirements of somebody that lives in a jungle. What like my first thing? Okay, I'll go and look into nutrition and nutritionists and what nutritionists read, right? If you know nothing, like I've trained calisthenics for a while, but if you know nothing about calisthenics, there's a name to find out what it is, or it's just body weight movement, or bipedal and quadrupedal. These types of things comes out of this self-directed casework in these particular areas. You make your reading serve the case and not the other way around. It's like you don't twist facts to suit theories. You twist the theories to suit the facts. Um, how can I understand science like a pro? Um, uh, to be honest, I don't think I'm the best person to answer that. I don't. Um, I might be well read on certain scientific methods, but I'm not a scientist. And I think there's a big difference there. In the same way that I can't sing, but I will sing. So if you want a singer, you go and see a singer. This type of idea, right? Um, and then there are also valid interpretations around that question of, all right, what kind of science do you mean? How can you understand behavioral science like a pro, the social sciences like a pro, memory science, neuroscience, all of these types of things? So, how I would answer the question would be the understanding of the science like a pro comes in how you use it, right? We want the theory, the knowledge, the implication, the experiments, the research, not to be something that's just sticking around in the palace. It to be something that we're able to use, right? That's how I would use it. And then from there, going back to um, the self-directed casework, you can kind of move into like a live reading map of sorts. It's like a dynamic resource of what it is that you are reading, have read, intended to read, that type of thing. You know, a simple list divided into three categories, right? Your dynamic map might be different, might need different things, but you could split it up into the core science, and then you could split it up into cross-domain subjects like history or philosophy that expand your pattern recognition. Like one of the things that I take my one-on-one guys through is when it comes to a particular niched. I still don't know if it's niche or niche. I've heard people say either. I don't care, but that's just something that popped into my head. Niche of emotion theory. I'm a big believer in, if you know where the research has come from and where it's going, you understand how you apply it in the current climate that you're in. So that needed a historical knowledge of emotion theory and application, and why things have evolved and changed, and led us to breakthroughs like Lisa Feldman Barrett's and beyond. Then you take applied case studies that test that theory in the real world, immerse yourself in those, take your own, immerse yourself in those, and then revisit the map as often as you can. Ask yourself as honestly as you can, am I better now at the thing I wanted to improve? And then if not, shift the direction of your reading. Right? It's an important thing that one must go through. And a thing that I don't want anyone to forget about is reading for fun, reading for pleasure, right? It's an aspect that I really don't want you or anyone to miss. Not all reading needs to be functional, right? Hear me. It's great if you find fun in the work and the function out of it, love that. But not all reading needs to be functional. Reading purely for fun, with no kind of professional agenda, has huge benefits. You pick up a comic book, or a novel, or a story you just enjoy. You're doing more than relaxing, right? Research shows that reading fiction boosts empathic understanding by letting you step into someone else's perspective. It strengthens your creativity by engaging your imagination in ways technical texts don't. I think that was from the Journal of Research and Personality. It's a while back, so I need to kind of check on the current understanding of that at the minute. But it's even been shown to lower stress levels. University of Sussex reading they found that reading for just 6 minutes can reduce stress by up to 68%. And there's more benefits. It's going to keep your mind flexible. Sorry, my community messages are going mad on my watch. Something's going to be there. But yeah, it keeps your mind flexible. If all you're reading is goal driven, you risk tunnel vision, difference of breadth and depth. Fun reading is kind of the calisthenics training for your brain. It keeps you open, playful, willing to see the world from unusual angles, which, let's be honest, is about as Sherlockian as it gets. Feel you on that. I have ADHD and I get sleepy after reading a page. I mean, that's a fair struggle. That's a fair struggle. I'm yeah, I get you. Oh, here we go. How can I concentrate in the part of reading without any disturbance and be focused on what I'm actually reading? Well, part of the answer is in your question. It's what you qualify as a disturbance. For some people who can read like commuting on a London train, I find that insane. Mostly because I hate folding the books back. Ugh, don't like that, and I would always rather read a real book than look at a Kindle anyway. Um, but that's too much for me. I need to sit down. I don't mind the noise and everyone else around, but I need to sit down. I can't stand up. So it's finding out what constitutes the disturbance for you, right? That's the job one, and then finding comfort within that, right? I quite enjoy reading with some ambience, whether it be rain sounds or some classical music or a film score or something that goes on for hours. I quite enjoy that. I like to be physically comfortable, so I can kind of immerse myself in it. But that's really a question that only you can answer. And then, shockingly enough, it's about practice. Reading is about practice, patience, persistence. For me, right now, it's comics and a bunch of other stuff. Right, this is all. I mean, I'll show you. This is all very meta and process driven. But to ground it, I'm gonna share with you what I've been going through books wise. Please bear in mind that I do keep as up to date as possible on the research areas and disciplines that I work with. Um, but these are just some of the stuff that I've been going through at the minute. Some are work related. Most are in book form or fun related. And this is only some of them. Although, if I showed you all of them, it would take too much time. So I just want to give you um, a brief insight into some of the stuff I've been going through. Right, reading for fun. Yeah, I mean, there it is. The Last Ronin. If you don't know The Last Ronin, I haven't read it yet. This is one of the ones that's on my list for this week. Um, but it's a very infamous story, a very popular one, and I hadn't read it yet. And then I'm brushing up on this for the film to from the film to come. And then I'm going into to the well, I've been into these, sorry. And then I have this that Maddie found in a charity shop for me the other day. I have puzzles, puzzles that I like. Let me see that Maddie found in a charity shop. That was a fun way to keep my stuff tight. This, it's a Spanish. I don't know if it's you class it as child, but it's a simplistic language. But it's a detective story. Um, Allows me to practice my Spanish because I work in the security world. I need to keep up to date with this data. Been reading about cold reading from Timon. This marvelous book from a wonderful human. I would love to get Fedden on the podcast to try and pick his brain as well. He's an incredible mentalist and a wonderful human being. I've never actually met him. Spoke a couple of times via messages, but I stand by that assessment of him. But he's a very clever sort. Very clever sort. Um, this I'm going to get into very soon. This is Dan Brown's new one. right? And then I've got another bag here full. But you get the idea. It's blended between a function and fun and passion and interest, and this is the process, right? So this is why when so many people ask me this question, it kind of devolved almost into that answer, which is technically correct, um, but it doesn't really serve the purpose in the same way that this does, right? So um, Absolute Batman. Yes, done. That's upstairs on my shelf. As is my. I clicked on that. As is Master Your Emotions. Upstairs. Done. Right. This is the key. I love to read. Right, I love to read because otherwise I'm existing in an echo chamber, a filter bubble. Right. And to be able to do what I need to do for my job and for the fun that I like and the enjoyment that I take from both my work and my life, there is an obvious truth that I can't know everything, can't read everything. So for other people to have gone and experienced something that I can't, I can learn from them, which is where these standards came from in this approach. So there you go. This will be something that I'll probably link to everyone every time they ask me this question now. And yeah, if you've got anything out of that, uh, uh, do let me know. I love to hear what you guys are taking from these podcasts, because otherwise it's just me talking to myself for a while. Let me know what you're reading down in the comments below when this is coming out, the edited version tomorrow. And with that in mind, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thanks for sticking around, and for those who have joined in live, I appreciate you. And we'll see you all next time. All right, guys, take it easy.